today's video, I'm showing you my experiences from the last month or two learning instant photography with the new Polaroid I-2 camera, showing you everything from my terrible first attempts to my, let's say, more decent results I could achieve after some practice. Something I love about photography as a medium is that it can be divided into sub-mediums within the medium of photography. In 2020, I first dipped my toes into the waters of film photography after practicing exclusively digital photography for a couple years. There are many other mediums of photography to try out, but so far I've been so fascinated and also satisfied with 35mm film photography that I haven't felt a strong enough urge yet to dive into something new again. Well, there is one actually that had caught my attention a couple times, and especially recently. Instant photography is that one other medium that has caught my interest. I was very attracted to the idea of this even more physical and tactile process. For me, 35mm film photography was already a huge step into a more physical form of photography, but this would be a whole nother level. It was especially recently when I saw my friend Tatsuki make some incredible work with instant film that I was really getting the itch. And then something amazing happened. Polaroid reached out to me and asked me whether I would like to try out their new Polaroid I-2 camera. I of course said, yes, please, thank you, yes, please, please. And then in a meeting with some people from the team, they asked me, have you actually ever shot instant film? Oh no, I would love to try it, but they're looking for some experienced photographers who know their instant photography. Yeah, all the time. I'm exactly the kind of guy you should be handing this camera to. And so they bought the lie and sent me the camera. No, I'm kidding, of course. I did tell them the truth that I've never shot instant film. However, they were actually kind of excited about that and wanted to introduce me to this new medium. And that is how this beauty of a camera landed here in Austria with me, where I'm going to take it out into the fields and the mountains to learn this new medium. So when I first received the camera, I was a little overwhelmed. It was so different to any camera I had ever held in my hands. However, on second look, it actually seemed fairly simple. The shutter button is at the front, and then there are three buttons here. One is the on-off button, another is the menu button to switch between modes, and then here is the flash button to activate the flash. The camera can be used in full automatic mode, but also in aperture priority, shutter priority, or even in manual mode. There are even two more modes. One is the multiple exposure mode, which lets you take double, triple, or even quadruple exposures. Is quadruple even a word? You know what I mean. And lastly, there is a mode for shooting with a self-timer. It was time to insert some film, and I had the exact same struggle that I already had when I first tried 35mm film. I'm often a little overly careful with gear in the sense that I'm too afraid to give the film a little push because I'm just not familiar with where the camera is sensitive. But actually it's very simple. Once you open the front here, you just slide the film in, give it a little push, and then you can close the front door again. So with that done, I decided to shoot my first few Polaroids. Well, those are okay. My film photographer's brain was thinking, oh, I should overexpose these shots so that they're guaranteed to get enough light. Well, turns out that Polaroids don't have the dynamic range that 35mm negatives do, and so it's best to shoot a balanced exposure, or your photos will look like this. I then made the same mistake but the other way around here by underexposing. So lesson number one from my first few shots is that Polaroid film is very sensitive, and so you have to get it just right for the best results. Which is a challenge I was excited to accept, and so a couple days later, when Melly and I went out to shoot some footage for a video, I brought the Polaroid camera along to get in some practice while outside. So here are the three shots from that day, and these are looking much better. At this point, by the way, I was still shooting in automatic mode and just used the exposure compensation to adjust the exposure. What I did on this day was slightly underexpose each photo. According to my notes, I underexposed these by 0.6 stops. I did this because I felt like I could gain some more contrast by pushing down the shadows a bit, and I think that worked out pretty well. I love the contrast and the rich blue tones in this shot, and this one also worked out pretty nicely in my opinion. This shot, on the other hand, was a risky one. I wanted to try shooting into the sun and backlighting melee. I think backlighting was not the issue here, but having the full sun directly hit the film certainly made the sky blow out here. I think it's actually not terrible, but not what I was going for. I wanted it to look a bit more like the other two shots. Then in the following weeks, I continued to practice every now and then and learned how the camera, the light meter and the film react to different lighting situations. So here, for example, are 3 shots from an evening walk, and it was in this shot that I learned that when shooting scenes like this one, underexposure is appropriate, whereas more front or side lit scenes like these can use the extra light so that the shadows don't just fade to black like here. Here is another set of 3 photos which I shot on a rainy day to see how the film reacts to this type of weather. Sadly, here you can clearly see I should have underexposed. I apparently hadn't learned my lesson yet, but it's not that easy actually to estimate when to use which exposure, as you can see in this shot, which in my opinion is a bit too dark. However, this one I think is beautiful. It has this perfect balance of deep blacks but enough midtones to make a clear yet moody picture. And the colours are wonderful here. Such rich green tones in the grass. I love it. With these 3 shots, I had finished a box of colour film and decided to finally also try some black and white. Whoa, you can see this didn't go too well. I first shot the 3 overexposed shots, and then I realised that they were completely overexposed, and so I decided to try the same shots again, but much darker, which didn't really help. By the way, by this time I was shooting in manual mode to purposefully underexpose the film, and well, I guess I just pushed it a bit too far, but also I learned that the black and white film is really contrasty and doesn't have a lot of dynamic range. Here's another shot. This one isn't even that bad. Since then, I haven't practiced it, but I really do want to get better at this too. But after this box, I decided to concentrate on improving my color Polaroids. One huge inspiration I've had for quite some time already are these photographs by Andrei Tarkovsky. I've been in awe of these photographs for years at this point, and learned some time ago that these were Polaroids, which was another one of the few works that inspired me to try this medium. While practicing, I always had Andrei Tarkovsky's Polaroids in the back of my mind as a sort of goal to strive towards. I wanted to learn this medium to one day be able to shoot photographs like the ones he's left me in awe with. And on the 5th of October, according to my notes, I went out again in the morning to shoot some Polaroids, and this was the first time I felt like I had kind of gotten a hang of it. And also, it seemed to me that I was slowly inching closer to producing photographs that gave me a feeling similar to the one that Andrei Tarkovsky's photographs gave me. I was so delighted to see how this shot of the tree turned out because I nailed the exposure exactly how I wanted it. These 2 shots could have needed some extra light, but they're alright. You see the consistency in getting the exposure right? I was very happy to see this improvement. I love this shot, and this one really does give me a feeling similar to the feeling that Andrei Tarkovsky's Polaroids give me. I can't really explain what it is. It's a mixture of lighting that feels a little hazy and dreamy, and the subject including some flowers here, but also the colours which emit a sense of coldness and melancholy. Here's the last shot from that morning, which I also like a lot. It gives me a similar feeling, not the same, but pretty close. With that success boosting my confidence, I felt like it was time to try something I'd been working towards, and that is to go out with my video camera and my GoPro to shoot a typical of me behind the scenes photography video with the Polaroid I-2. Maybe we're okay if we don't look too close. One sunny morning, I decided to make my way to the higher levels of Innsbruck, just outside of the town, and go on a peaceful walk with the camera and see what I can find. This is me looking through the results of my last shoot one last time to study what I did right and wrong and hopefully get some good results again. I had come to this cute little train station to start my walk here because I knew that this was a subject I wanted to shoot, and so why not begin right here? While setting up the composition and the settings, I got a little worried about the lighting, which seemed a little tough for the Polaroid to handle, but I really wanted to get this shot anyway. Here is the result, and I'm actually surprised how well this worked. I was expecting the shadows to just be black here, so I'm pleased to see some detail. Also, I really like the composition and how the train station on the right and the tree on the left neatly frame the scene in the middle. Also, we haven't talked about this yet, but I'm quite a fan of the square format. I know Polaroids are not exactly square, but very close. Anyway, let's continue. I continued to walk alongside the train tracks and then found a potentially interesting composition here where I could play around with the positioning of the various subjects on the right, meaning the train's power pole, the electrical towers in the distance, and the small signs in the foreground. With the Polaroids, I'm really taking my time to set up the composition and decide on the right settings. So with that time, I had a couple people pass me, and that gave me the opportunity to include a couple with their dog in my photo. I really like the results. The exposure worked out fine in my opinion, and I found the composition pretty pleasing with the balance of the various subjects and lines. Then here, I came across this fork of the road with a huge electrical tower in between.
I'm really liking this big one here.
I found this scene kind of fascinating, the way the road, the industrial elements and the natural elements mix in one scene. However, in the composition that I had in mind, there was a little hole on the left, and so I decided this was my chance to try the self-timer and make my first self-portrait and fill that hole by balancing myself inside it. Here is the result, and I'm pleased with it. I enjoy the composition, though maybe there's a bit too much negative space at the bottom.
I think for now I'll just keep the Polaroid on this tripod, and maybe I'll do another self-portrait up there anyway, so let's continue up that way for now.
And so I walked up that path and found a field where I smelt the potential for another photo. It took me a while to find what I wanted to do, but eventually I found a composition and decided to shoot another self-portrait. Here's the result, and I love this shot. The landscape is wonderful, however there is too much negative space at the bottom, which however now is solved by having me lying in the grass there. It has quite a random character to it, which I like. It raises questions, I find, which is something in photography that I personally like a lot. Then I made my way through a little town and then down the hill to a small train station that I had passed earlier that morning. The first time I was there, I didn't see a composition worth a shot, but this time I did see some potential and framed up a shot. I again took my time while setting up and dialing in the settings, and just as I was ready to shoot, I got lucky and someone appeared, and I was very happy to include them in my photo as a secondary subject. Here's the result, and I like this. I love the subject, the train station, it's so cute, but also I'm happy to have found this moment when two people added some extra character to the photograph. One person was having a peaceful moment for themselves on the bench at the back, while the other was just leaving the area. I find that they add a sense of life to the shot, so I consider myself quite lucky to have found this opportunity. Then I I continued my walk and found an interesting spot of light inside this forest where I decided to use the lighting to shoot another self-portrait. Here's the result, and the underexposure worked wonderfully in my opinion. I really like the look here, however, I think my pose looks a little weird, but whatever.
I've been feeling so small, watch the clock ticking off the wall.
Next, I found this gorgeous pond and decided to shoot yet another self-portrait with the self-timer and set up a composition here. This is the result, and I think it's pretty nice. I'm really happy with how the exposure turned out in this one and how the Polaroid pictures this beautiful scene I found. Putting myself into the shot was not vital, but I think it helps to add a point of interest in the composition.
It's just what I do when I'm out, so try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at these beautiful stars, I wanna drive a faster car.
So here I was basically back at the parking area where I started, and at the beginning I had spotted this entrance and felt like shooting it, but I was so unsure whether it would be worth it. By now, however, I had shot a couple photos that I was happy with, and so I felt more confident to just go for it and shoot this one anyway so that I don't regret missing out on it. This is the result, and I really like it. What caught me initially was the color contrast of the green leaves and the orange steps, but also the way the shapes interacted. Something about this corner was simply interesting to me, and this photograph captures that wonderfully, so I have zero regrets about this shot. This was the one photograph, by the way, that I shot with using a flash to properly fill the scene with light, and I think it helped. Then I found two final photos that I wanted to get before ending the shoot, so I loaded a new box of film to shoot photo number 9 and 10. The first shot was of this house and the beautiful garden with flowers in the front area. The sun was shining onto the scene from behind, making the flowers glow beautifully, which made me want to get a shot. Here's the result. This one didn't turn out that nicely. I think I should have focused more on the flowers and moved much closer. This is okay though, but not up to the potential I saw in the scene.
Okay, time to get the last photo of the day.
Lastly, I moved over to the other side of the road to shoot a close-up of the moped here. Actually, it was just in the foreground. The focus was set on the gate behind because I was quite fond of the glow that I got from the sunlight. Here's the result, and sadly I didn't quite get it in the way that I wanted. I think the foreground could need some extra light, or maybe I should have just shot with a longer exposure for a brighter image. Also, now looking at this, I think I have to change my mind. I think I certainly should have focused on the moped and have the glow in the background be slightly blurry. So that concludes my first few weeks of learning instant photography with the new Polaroid I-2 camera. This was so fun, and I'm quite happy with my learning curve actually, going from these photos to the ones that I shot in the last session. I'm keen on further practicing instant photography, and I especially still want to play around more with the multiple exposure function, but all in good time, let's not rush things. Massive thank you to Polaroid for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I am deeply grateful. I hope you enjoyed coming along on this little journey. Before I say goodbye, I want to give a warm thank you to all the lovely people who are supporting me in my work on Patreon. Huge thank you to each one of you. Check out my page if you're interested in extra videos such as tutorials or physical postcards or Lightroom presets. Also, by the way, I have a print shop if that is of interest to you. With that said, I hope to see you again soon. Until then, goodbye.